In today's session, we're going to be talking about cuts. I'm actually going to run through 3 different cuts today, outside of foot, inside of foot, and Cruyff. Cuts are probably the most commonly used move in all of soccer, and a fundamental move that you're going to have down definitely before you get to high school, and the younger you can get exposed to this, the better. So first of all, I started off, I've got a ball. I've set a couple cones about 10 yards apart. And the first cut I'm going to go through is actually an outside of foot cut. And I'm going to kind of go through it real slow just to kind of emphasize the technique, which is very important. So you see here, I'm dribbling with my strong foot. Notice that each time I'm dribbling, each time my foot comes down, I'm touching the ball. I'm dribbling with my instep. But the point of emphasis here is to cut. So see, when I dribble up to the cone, I use the outside of my foot to cut the ball, and then I'll actually shift all of my weight behind the ball. So it's like I say in most of the other training sessions, you kind of visualize that cone as a defender, right? So notice how when I dribble up to the cone, I use the outside of my foot, and then I shift my body and all my weight to shield the ball, right? So now my weight and my entire body is positioned between the defender and the ball, making it almost impossible for the defender to try and come and take the ball from me, right? So notice how I'm using the outside of my foot, how I'm positioning my body. And again, I'm just kind of going through it slow here, and I'll try to speed it up here a little bit as it goes on. So here I'm going to try to do it a little bit faster. And so notice this is got a nice slow motion there. So you can see when I make those cuts, that ball should be stuck to your foot. So notice when I make these cuts, I'm not making the cut. The ball isn't way out in front of me when I make that cut. That ball is literally, let's see if I do it here. The ball is literally stuck to my foot right there, right? So we're going to run through this a little bit. I'm actually going to have my son Kai here kind of run you through it a little bit here too. I'm going to have him go through his first couple at about 25% speed, and then he goes up to 50%, and then about 75%. So just notice again, we've got the cones set up about 10 yards apart. We're just dribbling back and forth in between the cones. And just like we emphasize in all the videos, right? The first thing is to work on the technique, work on getting it right. And then as you get comfortable with it, you can kind of speed it up. And then, like I said, once you're more comfortable with it, you can even start using this as conditioning. You can do it for 60, 90 seconds at a time, as hard as you can. So you're getting your technical training, you're getting your touches in, and you're working on your conditioning, which is, again, it's all simulating game speed. So there's our outside of foot cuts, right? Which very important. So now I'm actually going to shift over to do my inside of foot cuts. So notice now when I cut the ball, I'm utilizing the inside of my foot. I'm kind of shifting my body weight to, again, kind of shield that defender. And we can go over a lot of the different tactical uses of this in the games, but I'm trying to break it down simply right now so we can just kind of understand the move and get the basic mechanics of it. And then in future sessions, we can run through how to tactically use this and in what situations you would or wouldn't use it, and which ways you should turn depending on where the defender's at and all that stuff. But we'll try to keep it a little more simple here today. So again, notice I'm just going back and forth between the cones. Notice when I say it's a cut, so on all these cuts, whether it's inside of foot, outside of foot, or Cruyff, we're doing 180-degree direction changes. So notice that with each of these cuts, it's a cut, it's a 180-degree direction change. And there's a lot of different points of emphasis on these cuts. So if you notice here, like I'm actually not just using the inside of my foot, I'm actually using like the inside of my big toe. And again, if kids are younger and they're just learning this skill, just put focus on using the inside of your foot, using the outside of your foot. And then once they get that down, you can start emphasizing, the precision of the touch a little bit more. So you notice here, my son Kai is demonstrating. So he's actually using the inside of his big toe on these inside of foot cuts. And even with the outside of foot cuts, we're using the outside of our foot, but more specifically, once you really refine this, we're more specifically using the outside of our little toe. It's a very pinpoint, precise touch that we're using here. But again, depending on your skill level, you want to kind of run through the drill, make sure that they have the basic mechanics of it right before you start focusing on, the finer points, the precision of the touches and whatnot. So we try to do a couple slow motions here just so you can kind of see it and visually kind of understand what we're doing here. Notice Kai is he's doing his inside of foot cuts, and it's important to not only do these with the right foot, but also your left foot. And then finally, we're going to do the Cruyff. So again, I'm going to do it slow here to kind of hopefully let everybody see what we're doing. So notice here on this one, I'm using the Cruyff turn. I'm actually cutting the ball back behind my plant leg, which I'm trying to demonstrate here in slow motion. And again, with this one, it's a Cruyff turn. You can emphasize the proper technique first, right? Which is just using that ball, cutting it behind your plant foot. And then again, as you get more familiar with it, again, more specifically, you'll see I'm actually using the inside of my big toe as like a very pinpoint precision on these cuts. But again, that's a point of emphasis that, once the player starts to understand the basic cut, the basic technique, then you can start emphasizing some of those finer points, including, tactically what game situations you would or wouldn't apply this in. So I'm just kind of running through it here. Here's the Cruyff. See, I'm kind of speeding it up a little bit. Again, I'm going to the cone. I'm cutting it back. It's a 180-degree direction change, which is why it's called a cut as opposed to a turn. And again, it is important to distinguish the difference between a cut and a turn. And I would challenge you to go out and watch one of your favorite players, whether they're in the Champions League, whether they're a Premier League. I would almost guarantee you that between the outside of foot cut, the inside of foot cut, and the Cruyff, that you will probably not see, regardless of who your favorite player is, you probably will not see them doing a move more frequently in a game than any of these three cuts that we're talking about right here. And finally, here's Kai. He's going to demonstrate the Cruyff, and again, he's going to kind of start off slow, just so everybody gets it, and then he'll start to increase speed. And again, for this drill, I have the cones about 10 yards apart. I mean, there's different points of emphasis depending on your skill level. So you notice, like when we're dribbling the ball in between the cones before we make our cut, we're focusing on every time our foot comes down, we're touching that ball. So notice we're not kicking the ball way out in front of us and chasing it. We've got control of the ball. The ball's at our feet at all times. So there's all kinds of points of emphasis for this drill, but it really depends on your skill level. And like I said, it starts with just getting it right first and then fine-tuning it from there. So we'll watch Kai go here. Good job, Kai. And if there's any other points of emphasis or any other feedback you guys would like on this, please add some comments, and I will be sure to address these in the future videos. So just observe the technique Kai's using here when he's doing these cuts. It's definitely important to get the technique. We'll do a couple slow motion here just so we can really hopefully emphasize the technique here. And again, these cuts are, these are the most commonly used move in all of soccer, and it's definitely a move that you're going to want to get down sooner than later. And even if you're young and still struggling with it, it's good to try it. Even if you're not getting it down, it's a good move to practice and get started with. Making mistakes are part of the training, and it's always about, training and learning and trying to get better each time we go out here. So again, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing everybody at our next session.